Welcome to my vlog where I'll be evaluating a recent coaching session with Stuart, an athlete I rarely work with. Stuart is a multi-sport athlete who has competed at high level of sport for the past 8 years, developing a broad sporting experience. One key issue was my use of internal cues based on the assumption that Stuart's background meant he'd be further along the skill acquisition continuum. However, as Zhang and Rim suggest, a coach and athlete relationship is essential to recognise individual psychological needs and tailoring coaching strategies effectively. Given the limited relationship, I used the warm-up to assess Stuart's baseline. I kept cues minimal and only demonstrated movements once to gauge his natural understanding. As you can see, he struggles with balance during walking lunges and didn't replicate my demos well, indicating he is not as far along the learning continuum as I had thought. Fitz and Ponza's model outlines the cognitive, associative and autonomous stages of learning. I initially placed Stuart in the autonomous stage, but his performance suggested otherwise. Kim et al. Expanded this by suggesting cognitive learners benefit from simple internal cues with imagery, whereas associative learners benefit from a mix of internal and external cues for better retention. Moving on to the split squat. Here's me coaching Stuart using complicated internal cues, still treating him like an autonomous learner. Looking back, the warm-up showed he needed simpler instructions more suited to a cognitive learner. Here's the audio from that part of the session. We're going to put the bar on our back. Do you feel comfortable with the bar on your back? Brilliant. Okay, you're going to take the bar. You're then going to take a step back. You want your elbows in line with your spine, and then go into a split stance position. Okay? You want to maintain a stacked and neutral spine, and we're just going to descend, lowering our back knee to the ground. Okay? And up. Okay? Down and up. Okay? You're going to maintain a braced core throughout the exercise, and I want your knee to be stacked over your ankle with limited movement of your knee over your toe. Okay? Happy? Stuart managed to get into the split stance, but his knee travelled past his toes and his chest dropped forwards, despite my cues. I used concurrent feedback, asking him to push through his midfoot, a feedback method that tends to work with athletes who have solid understanding for the movement. However, Stuart's case, it was ineffective as he didn't fully grasp the cue or how to apply it to the movement. Later, I switched to terminal feedback to reduce the information overload that occurred during the concurrent feedback. However, my approach still relied on complex internal cues and language, which likely continued to hinder Stuart's understanding. In hindsight, this was a moment where simplifying my feedback or using an analogy could have made a big difference. Something like, imagine there is a pane of glass in front of your toes and you cannot smash it with your knee. May have helped him better visualize the correction. Miller's Magic 7 ±2 rule reminds us that working memory has limited capacity, typically only 5 to 9 pieces of information. By giving Stuart multiple complex internal cues, likely exceeded that capacity, causing cognitive overload and making it harder for him to understand and apply the corrections I was giving. Let's listen to that interaction. What you were, doing your split squat. If you want to go side on, you were split squatting and you were yielding at the hip, so you're going into that position there.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
What I need you to do is get into this position here. So nice, flat, straight up and down.
That makes sense.
Okay. To do that, we've got to make sure our core is braced and our spine is neutral. Okay. So if you can focus on that one cue today, I'm happy.
Cool.
Okay. After the feedback, Stuart's chest position was slightly more upright, showing some improvement. However, he still lacked a real understanding of how to properly brace his core and maintain a neutral spine throughout the movement. Looking back, using an external cue like keep the bar path moving straight up and down might have simplified the focus and improved his stability. By shifting attention to the outcome rather than internal body mechanics, it could have helped Stuart make a more immediate adjustment. My demonstration was clear, but the overuse of internal cues likely led to information overload. Next time, I will explore external or analogy cues, like imagining the bar path, to help guide proper form. Here's my audio cue during the bear crawl. It's going to be, we're going to go onto all fours. We're going to have our hands stacked underneath our shoulders and our knees stacked underneath our hips. We're then going to come up onto our feet, so our knees are off the ground. And we want a 90-degree angle in our hips and our knees, okay? We're then going to go opposite arm, opposite leg, just little steps, maintaining a flat spine, a neutral spine the whole time, keeping our core braced, okay? I'm just going to go all the way through to the number 8. Okay, happy days? Yep. During the bear crawl, Stuart struggled to take small steps and make proper hip and knee angle. To remedy this, I used external cues through simple constraints to guide his movement without overloading him with instructions. Good start. All I would say is we need to sink our hips and take smaller steps. Okay? So those are the 2 cues I'm going to give you now. Okay? I'm also going to do a bit of a constraint-led approach and give you something to keep onto your back so that we can maintain our flat and neutral spine. Okay? Using a constraints-led approach allows Stuart to discover more effective solutions by interacting with the environment, rather than relying solely on verbal instructions. By adjusting the setup slightly, he naturally found a better body position, leading to improved form, a flatter back, and greater movement control during the bear crawl. Encouraging exploration is crucial as it helps athletes develop stronger, more adaptable motor programs, which improves retention and transfer of skill into different movements and environments. Complex internal cues confused Stuart again, but the constraints allowed for self-discovery, which required less instruction from myself. Moving forward, analogy learning, especially for cognitive learners, may be more effective. It simplifies movement, promotes imagery, and can be combined with basic internal cues for clearer guidance. Simple. We're going to go hands just outside our shoulder width, in line, stacked over our shoulders. We're going to have a nice straight body from our toes to our head, okay? You're going to stay nice and braced in the trunk, okay, maintaining a flat spine. You're going to go down, all the way to the floor and up, okay? Moving as one. Down, up, okay?
Cool.
Happy days?
Yes.
Cool. Let's just do 7 reps. Moving on to the press up, my coaching was still heavily internally cue orientated. However, Stuart already had a good motor program for the press up and performed them quite well. The main issue was a lack of core bracing, which meant he struggled to maintain a neutral spine during the movement. This highlights that even when basic motor patterns are strong, small technical faults can still appear without clear and appropriate cues, such as using simple external cues rather than complicated internal ones. Here's the audio of me attempting to fix this issue. Cool. Okay, so we've got a bracing issue now, whereby we're letting our hips sink to the ground like this. Okay? What I need you to do is go from this position to there. Okay? Does that make sense? Do you want to go side on? So for that to look like when we're in our press up position, it's going to go from there to there. Okay? There. Okay? To do that, we've got to squeeze our bum cheeks and have a core nice and tight. Okay? So I'm going to demonstrate. I'll do a rep what you look like and a rep what it should look like. Okay? That's what it looked like. We want to go there. Okay? Happy days?
Yeah. So that's kind of there.
A bit more. So tilt your. Hang on. Go on all fours. Okay? And then and then go halfway. Bit more. Other way. There you go. There. Perfect. Now tight. A clear, in-depth demonstration helps Stuart understand and apply neutral spine mechanics. Providing strong visual cues gave him a clearer idea on how the movement should feel, improving his form and helping build transferable motor patterns to other exercises. In conclusion, this session highlights the importance of the coach-athlete relationship in determining which types of cues are most effective for each individual. It also reinforced the need to be flexible and adaptable when cues aren't understood, adjusting strategies to better match the athlete's stage of learning and needs in the moment.